Okay, I'm recording. We're live, guys. This is exciting. All right. Okay, can I close this? All right. So in audio and video production, it gets broken down into 3 different phases for us. So it's pre-production, production, and post-production. So for every project, whether it's a short film or a podcast or an audio assignment, we approach it in these 3 different kind of phases. So the first phase is pre-production, which is brainstorming, research, script writing, outreach, organization of the schedule, and assembly of the production team. And so the students would, figure out what's their group, what do they want to do. If they're doing a narrative, then they have to pitch an idea for their story and write a treatment. Whether they're doing a narrative or a documentary, they have to write a treatment. And then, they would do their script writing and their casting and, figure out what kind of equipment they're using and, who's doing what, who's going to be the director, who's going to be the editor, who's going to be, filming and all of that stuff. So that's pre-production, and that's when they organize all of their project. And I tell students, the more organized you are in pre-production, the more of a chance you have of a successful production. And they hate hearing that. And they never take it very seriously. But, they do see it, especially in the TV studio, because we go live and they don't, it's really hard for them to have to kind of pivot, when we're in production. Production of, the phase of production is capture of audio and video, capture of all of the elements needed to assemble the production. So, if they're doing a short narrative, they're recording the audio, usually separately. They're filming their scenes. They have got a shot list. They're going through and they're shooting all of the things that they need. And then they go back and they start assembling that stuff in post, right? And then post-production is editing of all of the elements together to create the story and the project that was pitched. So, if we're doing 3 or 4 projects over the course of the semester, and we break it down into those 3 phases, it will easily take us 12 to 15 weeks to get through all of those projects. The reason why I'm kind of bringing up this idea of the production workflow is because there are tools, open source tools for every single thing I just talked about. And some of the stuff is provided by SUNY New Paltz, right? Like we all have access to the Microsoft suite, right? So that's one thing right there. But I'm going to go through and share some different tools for all of those different parts of the process. So first is the pre-production resources. So there's a program called Open Office. I'm going to click on it. I'll bring it up. You guys can still see my screen, right? So Open Office is an open source version, basically, of Microsoft, the Microsoft suite. So if students don't have Microsoft or they don't have like the Apple pages, or if they're using like their Apple computer, it should be preloaded with the Apple version of the Microsoft suite. There's Open Office. They can also use Google, right? Like Google has its own programs right inside of it. So there's no reason why they should say, like, I couldn't make that spreadsheet, right? I couldn't organize my treatment. I couldn't do X, Y, or Z, right? Now, we do a lot of script writing, And we have a software that we use called Celtex, which for students, it's like free. They can get a free version for a little while. But they can totally go on to Google and find a screenwriting template and just bring it into Google Docs and start script writing from there, So OpenOffice, that's the open source version of Microsoft Office. This is Celtex. Has anybody ever used Celtex? No? So the great thing about Celtex is that it formats the scripts for you. So as you're typing through it, it'll say like, is this dialogue? Is this a scene? Is this a character? Is this movement? Is this action? And it formats the script. And then they can export the script as a PDF so that they can print it out or share it. But the other thing that's great about Celtex is that you can also, after you've finished with your script, translate it into an AV script. And an AV script is a shooting script or a recording script. So it's like on one side of it, you have the video, the clips that you need, the things that you need to shoot. And then on the other side of it, you have the dialogue or the lines or like what the character is supposed to be saying. So Celtex, it looks like it says that you can try the free version for 14 days for free. But then for students, it's like free or super cheap. But this is definitely a really great software. And I know that our students use it for multiple semesters, not just one semester. And it's like industry standard stuff. I mean, Final Draft is, there's a couple of like pro level screenwriting softwares, but for like the work that they're doing, this will definitely do the job. Another one is called GIMP. Has anybody heard of GIMP? So GIMP is like an open source version of Photoshop. So GIMP allows you to do image manipulation and editing. It's a free software, and you can, after you go in and do your, edit your photo editing, or it's for still images. It's not for video images. It's for creating, photo, like high quality, photo retouching and editing. So it's like the free Photoshop, or you could do some like Illustrator stuff in there. But you can export the photos and then share them. So GIMP is a really good open source option, kind of like the, antidote to the Adobe suite, which not all of our students have access to, by the way. The Dash Lab has the full Adobe suite on the computers, but the computers in the library do not have the full suite. I'm not sure what it's like in other departments. I'm assuming in art and or possibly music that there's the Adobe suite over there, but I'm, for most of the other programs on campus, I'm sure that they don't have access. So if they're looking for something that's open source, that's simple, and it's, that they can get access to, then GIMP is like a good option. So Canva, how many of you guys have used Canva? Has anybody used Canva? Okay, great. So Canva's great. For a lot of reasons, there's an app. So if you have whatever kind of phone you have, you can download the app. But I bring it up in this presentation because in Canva, they actually have a storyboard creator. So one of the things that we ask the students to do when they're coming up with their projects is to visualize, okay, where are you shooting? What kind of shots? Like, what's the scene looking like, right? And so they have to create storyboards. pre-COVID, I used to post, and I still do, post a template online for them to use, and they would actually like draw out like and sketch out what the scene was going to look like. But now because we're doing everything digital, I had to find, online versions of a storyboard. So Canva has a storyboard creator, and you would just log in if you have a Canva account, or create one, and then it will like give you some prompts. They have a couple of different versions because there's different styles of storyboards depending on what the need is. But then they just go in and then they map it all out and they create a digital version and then they export it and they share it with their peers. So it does really kind of speed up the workflow. And back in the day when we had the paper storyboards, I would say, I don't care if your people look like stick figures, as long as I know what's going on. And now that we have this digital platform, it's allowing them to really kind of think it out digitally, but also to be more precise about like what they're doing. Any questions right now? Everybody's okay? Good. Okay. So then obviously I mentioned before, Google Docs is, everybody has access to it. So, that's where they could set up spreadsheets. If, they're mapping out their shooting schedule, they can really kind of figure out, okay, who's going to be on that shoot? When is that shoot? What time of day? All of that stuff. So as far as pre-production tools go, this is a really good, spread of like websites and places, programs where they, you could point them in these directions. I don't know a lot about all of your projects that you're doing in your classes, but maybe one or two of these would be a good thing for you to suggest to your students. Okay, so production resources. So, a lot of content's being created with smartphones, right? So whether they're, Samsung users or Android users or iPhone users, or they have tablets, all of them are able to create some sort of content. They're doing it all the time, right? Like they're always making videos, whether it's on like TikTok or, they're doing their vlogging live through IG stories, or, they're recording stuff and they're putting stuff up on Facebook. Does anybody in this group do video responses to their, like for critiques? Because I know some professors, instead of typing out these like long like emails, they'll just record a video response to the student's work and then send it to the student so that there's, that kind of like that interactivity.
I just use Blackboard Collaborate. This is Gowdy.
Great. And how do you use it, Gowdy?
I just record my own session.
Yeah.
I get into the classroom and I record my responses.
Great. And then you just like send it to them through
Exactly.
Blackboard.
I make it available to everybody. Yeah.
That's great. Excellent.
I used Nomia just because it had been recommended and it worked really well on one student's paper. I could actually show her how to change the formatting because I was recording my screen and my voice and she was there too. Okay. But I haven't, it seemed it would probably take longer than the way that I actually mark up papers. So I haven't used it much, but I can see possibilities.
That's great. Yeah. And, even with Zoom or WebEx, right? Like if you're going to do kind of like a one-on-one or something, or, you could record yourself and then share it with your students that way as well. So there's a lot of different tools. If you go on to Amazon or B&H or any of the online retailers, you can, just type in like audio recorder for smartphone, or mic for smartphone, or adapter for a lens for smartphone, or stabilizer for smartphone, tripod for smartphone. So there's a lot of different tools, like hardware tools, that can be used to create some really good stuff. So can I play this video? If I just click on it, will you guys be able to see it through my screen? Can you see it? And you can hear it? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So let's watch this video. And the reason why I'm sharing this video with you guys is there was a feature film made called Tangerine. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. If you haven't, I would definitely check it out. But it was made using 3 iPhones. They shot the whole thing using 3 iPhones. They really invested their money in the audio capture for the film. Like they had like a full audio production team there. Let's watch this video.
Knowing that we wanted to tell a story about Santa Monica and Thailand, I had never seen it in film and TV, and I don't know why. I just knew that by passing this location, there were many stories to be told here. Matt, okay. No.
I got $2. You know what I spent that on?
What?
The bus and the donut.
It's been 4 years, and a lot has changed. We were shooting at a time where this area was becoming gentrified. Now it's pretty much gentrified altogether. The whole film really builds up to this climactic confrontation that takes place with our entire ensemble cast at what was once Donut Time, and now is actually owned by Danny Trejo, and he's made it into Trejo's Coffee and Donuts. We always knew that Donut Time had to be a part of it. It's iconic. It was the hub that many of these girls used at night for shelter. We didn't want to fake this at a donut shop on the other side of town. I actually told my producers, if we don't get Donut Time, I'm not interested in making the film.
I'm not doing it. I'm out of here because I told you. I already told you.
A lot has changed. There used to be 3 tables and then a side door over here. That's where we had Razmik's wife enter with the child. We shot over the course of 3 nights, but only 2 nights inside, and they started to close at midnight. So we could only really shoot 7 to midnight. So we had 5 hours one night, 5 hours the second night, and it was a running gun marathon.
What are you plotting?
It was always tight, and as you can tell, it's still tight. It's a very small space. Some people think we had a pimped out or a tricked out iPhone. That's not the case. We had an adapter that was literally the size of a matchbook that fit over the lens with a little stabilizer, and that was it. I was able to move very easily around and get different angles. There were 3 iPhones. You can see from the production of this movie, we're not making a ton of money. So I had to sell off one of the iPhones to pay rent, okay? But I held on to 2 of them, and one of them is being donated to the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures, and it's an incredible honor to have been asked, and we're very, very proud, very happy.
Okay, so, I think that's a really good example of showing you guys that, with an iPhone, you could really, or the students can really do wonderful things. By the way, he kind of broke the mold there, and there's been some more films since that have been shot with iPhones. And I don't know if you guys have Netflix, but there's a series on Netflix that's called Handmade, and it's all of these filmmakers that are in quarantine in COVID making work, and they're streaming all of the stuff on Netflix. So I think there's like 12 different shorts on there, but a majority of them are using like mobile devices to create this content. Okay, so Open source audio editing platforms. I made this little spreadsheet here to kind of share with you guys. I have 3 examples for audio and 3 examples for video. And again, they're not all of the examples, but they're kind of more of the tried and true programs that I've heard of and that I know other people are using. So the first one is Ardor, which is free, fully featured digital audio workstation similar to Pro Tools or Logic, which are, kind of industry standard audio editing workstations. It's available, it's free, and then it's also works with Mac OS and Linux. And I'm going to click on the link just so that you guys can see what the website looks like. So I know that some of you have mentioned that you do podcasting projects with your students. If you know an audio editor or people that work in music, people that do podcasting and like interview stuff and people that do music stuff have very different needs for their workspaces. And one of the things that's great about all of the ones that I'm sharing with you guys is that you can really customize your workspace. And so if you're doing it for podcasting, you can really set it up to be more, podcast centric. But within these programs, you can record audio, you can edit audio, and you can mix it and then export it and share it. So, again, it's free. Obviously, all of these programs, they have like a free version. And then, maybe you want to, if the students or you guys really like it, you want to go under the hood a little bit more and you want to add some plugins or kind of like soup it up, you can spend a little bit more money. But Ardor is like one of the older audio editing platforms. Hold on 1 second. Okay. The next one is Audacity that most of you guys had kind of mentioned before. So I'll pull that up just so that you can see that. So Audacity's been around for quite a while. I think that in the Dash Lab, we have the Adobe Suite in the Dash Lab, so there's Audition is the Adobe version for audio editing, but most people in the industry either use Logic or they use the what am I thinking of? Pro Tools, which is owned by Avid. So Audacity is pretty simple, actually. If you just, get it, download it, open it up, it's pretty self-explanatory. There's plenty of resources online for tutorials and demos on like how to record, how to import, how to edit, how to export. So, if it's something that you're interested in, out of these 3 tools that I'm sharing with you guys, if you were about to start, thinking about audio recording and editing, I would say start with Audacity and see how you feel about it. And then if you feel like, okay, you understand like the workflow and like the non-linear audio editing portion of it, then maybe branch out to these other ones. But for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. Anybody that's used Audacity, do you have any complaints about it?
I just have a question about, is it easy to use Audacity to record somebody through your computer?
I think you can. I'm not really sure. I haven't done that yet. But, you could always record the audio first and then import it into Audacity. So, you could do the recording, capture the audio, and then bring it into Audacity and like clean it up or edit it or, do whatever you need to do.
What do you recommend for recording the audio? That's my primary question. For them to record audio through their computers.
Yeah. So what I always tell people is that they should, one, use a microphone, even if it's their headset, like their little, earbuds that have a mic on it. Like, at bare minimum, please do that, because then there's not an echo and their voice is not getting lost in the room. And then they can record it with anything that's on their computer. And then or Skype. Skype is like a really good one for them. That's what most, when we're listening to NPR and we're listening to like the, news reports on the radio, a majority of them are using Skype because the capture quality is so much better. So they can capture it that way and then bring it into one of these programs and edit it. And please emphasize that they need to use their earbuds or like a microphone. And you guys should do the same when you're recording. If you're recording your lectures or you're recording audio or video, I highly recommend. And I mean, Chrissy has a nice little headset. But it could be as easy as using earbuds. There's plenty of, thank you for modeling, Vanna. You're one. So, the headsets are super helpful. The last one that I want to recommend is called Reaper. And a lot of people have never heard of Reaper, but Reaper is actually amazing. And I know audio engineers that learned on Reaper and then they're forced to use Pro Tools or Logic. And the thing that they like about Reaper is that it's highly customizable. It's super easy to navigate and use. And it's actually a local business. Fun fact, Senator Jen Metzger's husband is one of the creators of Reaper. And the reason why this software was created was because he was an audio editor. He was editing something and he was doing it in Pro Tools, and he found a bug in Pro Tools. Something wasn't working. And he went and he fixed it. He created a back end thing to fix it. And he sent an email basically to Pro Tools and said, hey, there's this bug. I fixed it. Here's the code to, fix it. And he got banned from the Pro Tools message boards. And the reason why was because they were like, this guy, is competition. And so he ended up finding another guy who had a similar experience, and they created Reaper. So, if you go onto their website and kind of look around, it's $60. The license is $60. For commercial, for educational and commercial, it's a little bit more expensive, but it's not as expensive as Logic or, one of the other professional prosumer programs. So yeah, I would definitely check it out and recommend it to your students. And then they also have guides on there and videos to kind of help walk people through the process and learn how to use the program. So any questions about these guys, about the audio editing platforms? Okay. And so
actually, Megan, I had a quick question. I'm just sort of focused on microphones at the moment.
Okay.
Are you using a headset or a microphone, or are you straight on your computer?
I'm just straight on my computer right now.
Okay, it sounds pretty good. I'm curious what Chrissy sounds like with the headphone that you're pitching, Chrissy.
She sounded really good before. Chrissy?
Yeah, I'll talk. I guess this is what I sound like with my
Oh
my
yeah, that's
headset
a big
on.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in my office on my Mac right now, which, it's like a pretty good capture, but you know, Chrissy's mic is definitely super, it sounds really good.
It does sound good.
Chrissy, did
Can
you?
I just ask really quickly? I never get to know this. I'm using a Logitech microphone on a Logitech camera. I have no idea if I sound good or echoey.
It sounds
Like, should I
good.
bother? Sounds okay?
Yeah, it sounds okay. I mean, it depends on, how polished you think you want to be. I mean, you could also just get, a headset like Chrissy has, and that would probably do the trick too.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Sorry to interrupt, but I was just really focused on that question.
No, and maybe Chrissy, if you know the model that you have, if you want to put it in the chat.
Yes, I put it in the chat. It's a USB headset.
Great. Okay. So now I'd like to move into open source video editing platforms. So there's 3 different open source video editing platforms. I mean, a majority of the students, if they're Mac users, they obviously have access to iMovie. I think Final Cut Pro is still downloadable. I think you have to pay for it. It's not free. So the 3 different video editing platforms are Lightworks, Blender, and DaVinci Resolve. And I'll be honest, like last spring when we were scrambling to go online, actually even after Adobe had announced that they were going to give free software licenses to students for the rest of the academic year. And then when everybody realized, oh, this is not over, like we're going to be back online in the fall, like what do we do? And Adobe wasn't saying whether they were going to extend that promotion. We as a department started looking at other options, and one of the options that we kind of settled on sharing with the students was DaVinci Resolve. But the first one is Lightworks, and it's been around for about 25 years. Just open that up, and it's a pretty straightforward video editing program. It's downloadable. It's usable for Windows, Linux, and Mac. But the thing about, I think, that overwhelms most people when it comes to audio and video editing is not really understanding the workflow of like importing your footage, putting it, on the timeline, being able to, cut, a clip, like cut off the front, cut off the back, assemble more clips together and then export it and then upload it for sharing, right? I mean, that's like pretty bare bones what most people are doing. So if you understand that, then you can use any of these platforms. It's just, some of them have a little bit of a different look in their interface. But if you understand, okay, I've got my digital clips, I want to bring them into the program, I want to put it on the timeline, I want to, put them together in this order, and then I've got my story, or I've got my project, I've got my presentation, and now I want to export it, right? So you can do that with any of these. So Lightworks is free. Again, there's a bunch of tutorials that they have available for, from how to install the program to exporting, shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts, etc. So if you just go on to the Lightworks website. All of the information's there, and they also have forums too. So that Lightworks is the first one. The second one, yeah.
I just, excuse me, I just went on the Lightworks website.
Yes.
And it says it's free for 7 days.
It's free. I think it depends on what you need as far as like different memberships, right? If you're an individual, I think it might be, is it not longer? Or did they just change it? Let me see. Okay, yeah, so you have that's Lightworks Pro. I think I thought they had like just a normal version that was not Pro. But it looks like you can get a year license for $175, but that depends, I guess, what you're using it for. And then they have like a beta version. I'm not really sure. I haven't used that. But Blender is another one, and I'll open that one up here. So they have been around for a while as well. Let me see if I can open. So it's free. Blender is actually more for like 3D creation, but they do have a video editing kind of part of the program. So if you go under, let me see, features. Okay. If you go under the features tab and then you go to video editing, it kind of tells you a little bit more about how it can be used for video editing. But because the program is more targeted towards like 3D creation, obviously there's a little bit of video editing that's involved for that. So this would be used more for like super simple, bare bones, like editing. And it's available. Let me see what the price is, how it breaks down. I know that they have like a free version. Where is it? Can't.
Its front page does say free software.
Yeah. I know that like sometimes they have different prices for, let's see. Yeah, I would just recommend going onto the site and, looking at it and seeing if it's for you. That's another thing I wanted to say about all of these programs is like, you guys, or give as many of the options as possible to your students, because it really is about user preference. Like you might like Blender more than DaVinci because you're just more comfortable with it, right? Or you might like Reaper more than any of the other ones because you're more comfortable with it. So it just depends on your comfort level. Okay, so the last one is DaVinci Resolve. So it's actually used in the industry by professionals, but it's, as far as like the free version, it does allow you the opportunity to bring in video, to import the video in like a bunch of different file formats. You can, edit the clips, mark the clips, bring them into the timeline, assemble them, and then export the video. It's kind of very similar to iMovie, but it's, free and it's open source. But they've done a really good job of like making a program that's like introductory, that's like beginner, like to kind of get people in the door and get them comfortable. And then once they want like a little bit more, they want to go a little bit more professional, then they have like other options as well. So DaVinci Resolve, and DaVinci is actually really well known for color. So they do a lot of like color grading. So that's kind of where they come in. So, you know, all of these video editing platforms, they kind of have their own niche, whether it's like 3D content creation or color grading. They kind of have their niche for things that they do within the industry, but then they're providing like a basic video editing program platform for other people, right? Any questions about the video editing stuff? Again, I highly recommend just like going onto the sites and checking them out and seeing if it's something that you're interested in downloading and playing with. There's also, especially because our students are using their mobile devices, there's a lot of video editing apps. You know, I always laugh when I say this, but there's an app for that. Like anything you want them to do, there's probably an app for it. I know somebody brought up earlier the StoryCorps app. I mean, that's great for like podcasting. You know, they could even, if they're using an iPhone, you know, record stuff using voice memo and then just upload that audio to their computer and edit it using one of the open source platforms, right? You know, as far as video editing goes, there's one that I use. It's called Filmic Pro. And it gives you some more options as far as like recording video on your iPhone. It allows you to adjust like the shutter speed. It allows you to adjust like the frame rate. It allows you to, you know, change adjust the iris so that you can have a little bit more control over something that seems like it would not have that much control over. So this is just a few different options, but there's one called Quick, there's one called Filmora Go, there's one called InShot, there's another one called Vlogit, and then there's one called Splice, which is a video editor. I mean, there's a bunch of different apps. I mean, you could just like do a Google search or go on to the Apple App Store and just see like, you know, which ones are the most popular, which ones are, you know, getting the better reviews. And again, it's all about user preference, right? Like what you prefer as, you know, the content creator. So distribution resources. So as far as, and this might be helpful for you guys just thinking about how to deliver your content or how to share content. For audio distribution, there's SoundCloud. Like that's one of, I think, you know, the easiest and most accessible. So, you know, you set up your SoundCloud account and then you can post stuff on there and then you just share the link, or you can embed it into your presentations or on Blackboard or whatever. There's another one called Podomatic. I'll open that up. Which, you know, if you create a podcast, this is, you know, it kind of shows you the steps to making a podcast. And then they have free podcasting hosting forever, but then they have pro plans that would start at $2.99, depending on how much you need. So it depends on, you know, how much content is being shared or put out there. And again, you know, a lot of these websites have apps as well that kind of make it easier for them to create the content and share it. So that's Podomatic. And then another one is called Anchor.fm. And Anchor also has an app, but it's an app, it's an online streaming place for people to share their pods, but you can create a podcast, you can distribute it, you can get analytics. I mean, obviously the bare bones level, it's just like record it and share it. But if you want more data or more information, you can spend a little bit of money on like their membership, and then you can get that information. You can get analytics. And then some people even, get advertisers, and so then they'll start making some money depending on whatever they're doing. So those are a few different options for audio distribution: SoundCloud, Podomatic, and Anchor. And then as far as video goes, I prefer Vimeo over YouTube because there's more of a content creating community on Vimeo. YouTube, obviously, everybody knows YouTube. It's super easy to just upload stuff and share it and embed stuff from YouTube. Another way of doing it is through social media platforms. I know some professors that have set up, their classes, like, as, for students to be interacting with each other, but for kind of curating a space of content that, goes beyond the semester, maybe they'll set up an Instagram or a Facebook or something where, students, or, like Twitter, right? Where students have to go on, sign on, share, interact with each other. So if you have like an Instagram that's part of your class, and you require your students to do 3 IG stories over the course of the semester, then they're going to have to record the story, they're going to have to share the story, they're going to have to comment on each other's stories. So that gives you kind of like a built-in platform for everybody to be interacting with. Does anybody in this group like using social media as a way of interacting with students? No. Okay. Yeah, it's just an option. It's like, again, saying like you got to meet them where they are. Well, they're all on, a majority of them are on social media. So, and especially because all social media is visual these days, right? It's a good, easy place to kind of put stuff up. So one of the last things that I want to talk about with you guys today is organizations that are doing work around like open source and interactive kind of storytelling. So the first one is called Video for Change. And if you go on to their website, I hope it'll load. I have so many tabs open right now. A network of organizations using video to create change. If you go on and you look at resources, sorry, my internet's being kind of slow right now. It gives you like some templates for like what to do before filming, where can you send your videos after you've created them, a little bit about editing, some more kind of plans about filming, and how to create content using mobile video. And then they have also some different toolkits there for creating like impact videos, which is like a really big thing, especially in education. So Video for Change is a good organization to check out and see if there's any resources on there that might help you, because they do have a lot of stuff that's kind of an intersection of advocacy and education. The next one is Witness. I don't know if you guys have heard of Witness, but it's a human rights organization, and their kind of mission is really focused around having people, pedestrians or, kind of like people that are witnessing some type of catastrophe or problem to feel empowered enough to take that device out of their pocket and record it so that it's documented, and then share it in a way that will help to advocate for change. So Witness is a really great organization. Edit Media is an educational organization that does stuff around, teaching material. Teaching media, teaching media ethics, teaching about media studies and critique. So if you go on to editmedia.org, there's a lot of resources there. And they will also, kind of link on to other organizations that are doing work around this stuff. So if you just click on teaching materials, there's assignments there, there's activities, there's video clips. So Edit Media is a good organization to kind of bring into the classroom. Here's the Center for Artistic Activism, which is, they do a lot of kind of culture jamming work, but they're also big supporters of open source media making and content creation. So, that might be a good tool to kind of share with your students. And then there's also the Pele Center for Media and Sundance. I'm sure you guys have heard of Sundance. One of the things that they decided to do during quarantine was to open up their kind of their master classes. So if you go on to the Sundance Collab site, they have a bunch of videos where people are talking about filmmaking, talking about their process. There's master classes that kind of, where people are talking about different things. These were free. They might not still be free. So, you probably just want to look on there and check it out and see if there's anything that is worth, sharing or that you're interested in yourself. So that's just to name a few. Believe me, there's plenty of organizations out there doing this kind of work.